Okay, so I think that we are ready to start. Hello, everyone. Yeah, you heard me properly. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar. I hope that you are having a good day. For today, we have the honor to be with Enahoro, he will be sharing with us about effective communication in a diverse themes. My name is Gina. I'm a member of the Regional Ad Hoc Committee on Student Branch Leadership Support. And today with us is also our chair, Alaf Shalhab, who will be joining us in our webinars. Thank you so much for all of you that had the opportunity to join. We will be here for about 45 minutes. And first, we will have the presentation. And at the end, we will have a Q&A session. So you can submit any question that you can have or any comments through the tools that Google Meet has for this option. So it will be easy for everyone and we will manage at the end. So for today, we have our webinar with Ms. Pashen Ovehi Enahoro. She is an electrical and electronics engineer, engineering business manager, and sustainability leader. She has over 20 years of experience in the energy sector with ExxonMobil and over 10 years in nonprofit social impact work. Her industry experience spans the areas of industrial electrical system, automatization and control, contractor service, staffing, safety, health and environment, operational leadership, as well as reliability and maintenance. Her not-for-profit work are in the areas of the inspiration, STEM, and sustainability. She focuses on inspiring and training young people, particularly girls, to become great achievers who are also responsible to the planet. Her educational background includes a field degree in electrical and electronics engineering from the University of Benin in Nigeria. She also has a master's degree in engineering business management from the University of Warwick in UK, and also an ACA in management, innovation, and technology from the MIT. She is the founder of Pashen Enahoro Valley Foundation and a member of the IEEE Region 8 Committee for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. She is the immediately past IEEE Nigeria Chair for Women in Engineering, Vice Chair for Peace and Action for Industry Ambassador. Today, she will be sharing insights and experience about effective team communication and the best practices, especially on managing communication in diverse teams. So, Patient, thank you for being here with us, and the floor is all yours. And for the people, please remember to write your question in the Google Talk box.
Thank you, Gina, for having me. And thanks everyone for joining. For me in Nigeria, it's quite late. It's about 7 p.m. So I don't know what time it is for most of you, but I suppose you've had a full day of work already. So thank you for making the sacrifice to join us tonight. So first of all, I want to apologize for my voice. I had a cold last week and I'm just recovering from the cold. So I lost my voice completely at some point. I'm really grateful I can even speak today because like 2 days ago, I couldn't speak at all. So please bear with me if I sound a bit hoarse. I don't have Google Meet on my work laptop, so I'm joining from my phone. So Gina, I would appreciate if you could put up the slides as I speak and send them to you. So I'm trying to keep the conversations very simple tonight because, you know, is the modern world, is the world of AI. If you want to learn about effective communication models, I'm sure you can find 25 different communication models just by typing into ChatGPT or Copilot, you know, what are the effective communication models. But what I'm going to do this evening is, instead of going through theoretical model, I'm going to simplify things and I'm going to speak to the basics. And I'm going to be drawing from my personal experience working with different teams over the past 2 decades. So,
Yeah. Actually,
Gina, just
sorry to
test.
interrupt you. Yeah, I can find the slides.
Okay.
Did
I
you?
sent, yes, I sent them from my work email.
Oh,
Just one moment. Let's see if we can
yes,
sort that out.
yes. Sorry, everyone. We just need a few minutes.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me see if I can
then
resend it. Because I
yeah,
only
I'm
use Zoom
trying.
on my work email, and we have restrictions on other apps. So,
Oh, okay.
and I can't present on my phone. Let me see if I can resend it.
Yeah, I refresh my email and I can see it. So if you can send it again,
Okay, let me just do
yeah,
that right away.
thank you.
So, Gina, could you please check again?
Okay. Oh, 1 second. Yes, I have it. So
Okay.
please, one moment while I download it and sharing here. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it.
We are all yours.
Thank you for your patience with me. Pun fully intended. So, if you can hear me loud and clear, could you put any emoji that you like on? Let's just see your reactions. Thank you so much. So, let me apologize once again for the hitch we had. And now we're going to go straight into the material. Thank you all for your patience. So, today we're talking about effective communication in multicultural teams. And one of the things we first mentioned in the introduction was the committee I currently belong to in IEEE, which is the DEI committee, the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Committee for Region 8. And so that's where I'm going to start the discussion from. If we're talking about communicating effectively in a multicultural team, then we're talking about managing communication where we have diversity. If we move on to the next slide, please. So we'll start with the basics. What does it really mean? What does diversity mean? What does equity mean? And what does inclusion mean? Diversity just simply refers to a range of different things or people. And in this context of our discussion tonight, we're talking about different people. So when you say you have diversity in a work group, in a volunteer group, what are you speaking to? You're speaking to the fact that they are different in some ways. In a moment, we're going to look at how we could be different within a team, but just understanding that a team could have very different types of people is a foundation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And equity speaks to the fact that where you have different types of people, it is important that everyone is treated fairly, without discrimination, without undue advantage to one type over the other. So equity is looking at the fact that everyone gets an equal chance to experience an opportunity. So we have a picture at the bottom of the slide, and that's a picture I really, really like. It's been floating around the internet for many, many years. But it's one of those pictures that differentiates between equality and equity. Equality could mean just giving everyone equal opportunity. But sometimes equal opportunity, like you can see from the picture to the left, does not necessarily mean they have equal experience. You have people of 3 different heights trying to watch a football match over a fence. If you give all of them the same height of a stool, only one of them would be able to watch the match comfortably. The second person may need to strain a little bit to watch it, and the third person will still not be able to watch the match. But if you look at their heights and decide, we have 3 very different persons here. So the first person does not even need any help. He's doing just fine. The second person needs a single stool, and the third person needs 2 stools stacked on top of themselves to be able to have the same experience. So equity is not just about equal treatment. It's about ensuring equal opportunities in terms of creating tailored solution for each person in a team. And that's why the word in recent times has been equity and not just equality. And the third word we find in DEI is inclusion. We hear the word inclusion and diversity a lot. And the basis for inclusion being part of this discussion is the fact that we could be diverse and not fully harness the beauty and power of our diversity, because there is beauty and there is power in diversity. Research has shown time and again that diverse teams achieve far more. They are far more creative, far more profitable than homogeneous teams. Take, for example, a board of all men, or on the flip side, a board of all women. In other words, a board that is not diverse in terms of gender. What you find is that just including one woman in a board of only men increases the profitability of the organization, and the same way in the reverse. It shows that where there are differences, we thrive more. So inclusion is about appreciating the fact that it's okay for us to be different, but when we find ourselves in these spaces where we have different types of people, we have to deliberately allow these different types of people to contribute. In simple terms, everyone has to be included in the conversations, which is the area we're focusing on tonight, in the contributions, in the responsibility. Whatever we're doing in a team, let's ensure that we're not just having different people in the team, but the different types of people are contributing in that team. This is Region 8, and I know that many of us on this call would have had the opportunity to volunteer and serve alongside people who are probably not from our countries, or not from our ethnic group, who are different from us in one way or the other. Can you just put an emoji, any emoji at all that you like, if you feel like you have been excluded before in a team? If you feel like you're part of a team, but you're not really part of the team because you're not being given the opportunity to fully contribute. Thank you. I see all of the emojis. So this is a very valid point. I see the crying emoji as well. It's really heartbreaking when you come into a team and you can't bring your best self into the team because for some reason you're not being treated with equity, you're not being included. Your difference is obvious, but there is no effort to make you feel equal and included in all aspects of the team activity. So this is a valid point. Unfortunately, DEI has been demonized for different reasons, but it's important we go back to the basics from time to time and understand what this is really about. So we'll move on to the next slide where we begin to look at the ways we can better understand how we're different and how we can better harness these differences. So I took this chart that was developed by Andre Jones Roy, and it's on medium.com. I took it because I really like how it comes down to the basics of how many different ways that we can be different. So when you think about team diversity, one of the things that come to mind quickly is cultural, which is the focus for our topic today. How do we communicate well when we're in a culturally diverse team? And there is race, there is ethnicity, there is age. Oh yes, if you've been um, a Gen X or a millennial and you're the only one and everyone else is Gen Z or Gen Alpha, you know how it feels sometimes. So age itself can be a form of diversity. Of course, there is gender. That's the one we probably have talked for the most in this space. You can see how women have been historically excluded from politics, excluded from corporate leadership. And we're really grateful for, as women, we're grateful for all of the opportunities we've had to close the gap over the few years. But we know that even as at today, with all of the efforts in that direction, there is still a lot of discrimination and inequality with women compared to their male counterparts in different spheres of life and in different cultures at varying extents. It's better in some places than the others. And we can see cognitive abilities, personalities, physical abilities. Do we feel included when we are not the same as the typical able-bodied person? If we need special disability assistance, do we feel included in the workplace, in our volunteer teams, in society? If we have differences, cognitive differences from other people, if we have personality differences, there are many ways in which we could be different. And I put this particularly big chart here because I want us to think beyond just cultural difference. As we work, in various teams as volunteers, in our workplaces, at home, we're going to realize that there are many, many ways we could be different from the people that we are interfacing with. And so I wanted to think, what other ways can you be different from people around you? What other ways can your teammates be different from you? And I wanted to feel free to type it, type any other way that you can think of that we could be different from people around us.
Mm, Passion, we can hear you. Okay. I think that we're having some issues. So let me see if I can check what is happening. Sorry, everyone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Ye- yes,
I am
but
sorry. It looks like I
we
was
can
thrown
see
off,
you.
but you can't see me.
No,
Okay.
it's frozen.
It's frozen. Okay, let's see if we can unfreeze it.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah, much
see
better.
if we can do that. So is it clearer now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. Apologies for that. So I was saying before the connection went off that I would like to hear from you something that is not on this page that you can think of that could be a difference between you and someone else in a team. Feel free to type it, in the chat. Gina, do they have access to type in the chat box?
I can open. It's open for everyone now, so you can write.
Okay.
Feel free.
Okay, so feel free to write what way do you think it could be different. I've mentioned quite a number already. If you can think of any other, just type it there.
We receive one through the questions, but it say it can be in terms of interest when you work as a team.
Interests. Good. That's a very good one. Interests is you could have completely different interests from the people that you're working with. I can think of something that's not, if you have a thought, just keep it coming in. Have you thought about the difference when you're in a team with people who are single and you're married? Is that a major difference? People who have children when you don't have children. People who have master's degrees when you don't have one. People who come from money. People who come from billionaire families and you're from a poor background or the other way around. There are countless ways we can be different. Countless ways. And you meet people and you see that the worldview is just different. People believe in God, people who don't believe in God. Very different ways we can come to a team and we have, I think there's one more comment. Can you tell me what it is? Because it's sort of tricky navigating in
Yeah, it's the way
on the phone.
everyone works and contribute to the environment you're in.
The way everyone works. And that's very valid. We don't work the same way. And there is also the personality. So if we look here on the screen, we could see the identity part, which is usually how you identify your gender, your race, your age, your size, your nationality, your sexuality. And you could see the cognitive side, which looking at things like your educational background, your risk tolerance, your hobbies or interests, your work or life experience, your values and biases. And I like the one about intro or extraversion. In other words, your personality. And that's really important because you could be in a team and everyone is an extrovert. Everyone is chit-chatting, talking, and you're an introvert. If care is not taken, you could be in a meeting all day and you say nothing. And if the rest of the people in the team are not cognizant of the fact that your personality will not let you interject when they are speaking, they will not make room for you. So there are many ways in which we're different. We've talked about the neurodiversity. Some people are on the autistic spectrum. They could be extremely smart, but their social interactions are very different from people who are not neurodivergent. And so we have to be aware of the fact that we could be very, very different in our teams. And so having established the fact that there are many ways in which we could be different, not just culturally, not just religious wise, not just racially, not just cognitively, not just in our physical abilities. There's so many different ways that we could be different, it's important for us now to focus on the actions on our part that could help us build inclusion in every team. Remember my earlier comments as we move on to the next slide about the fact that inclusion allows us to get the best out of the team. And the best teams are always the ones in which everyone can be themselves and contribute. So speaking about contributing, I think the first thing we should think about when we talk about communications is everything else other than the words. And that's what this page is speaking to. I'm trying to bring it down to as simple as possible. Most times when we're talking about communication, people are thinking about the words that they're using. But usually, it is not just about the words, it's everything else. Your tone, your body language, your facial expression, everything else. Your behavior before and after the words that makes that communication effective or not. So before we go into the very act of speaking, I would like us to think of all of the other things, right? So please forgive me, I'm recovering from a cold. So I have all of these things going on with my throat and my nose. So forgive me, I'm going to have, some of these interruptions from time to time. So before you speak, what should you think about? Think about the universal language. We could have linguistic diversity, but don't worry too much about that because some things are universal. Whether I know you or not, if I wave at you, whether I understand your language or not, if I wave at you, you would wave back at me. Because it doesn't matter how different it is, especially if I wave at you with a smile, that is a language you would understand. I think I need to grab a cup of warm water to help me with this cold. So please just bear with me for 1 minute as I grab my mug of hot water. Thank you. Okay, thank you for your patience with me. So before I left, I was speaking about the universal language, which would help you in communicating effectively in any team at all. The first is the language of respect. Respect never grows old. It doesn't matter in what culture you're in. If you show respect for other people in the way you speak to them, you will get your message across to them faster and better than if you don't care about how your message is perceived. Kindness never grows old. Be gentle with your remarks. And in this particular case, I will talk about things like generational differences. We can be very brutal when we make jokes across age groups. We can make fun of young people so much they feel uncomfortable in teams. We can make old people feel like they are so outdated and ancestors that they feel uncomfortable in terms. Let's be careful that even when we're trying to make light of situations, have, jokes in conversations, that we're kind. We're kind to people who are different from us. We shouldn't be laughing at other people's ideas because they are religious and we're not religious people. So even in the way we speak to people, let's have that behind our mind, that beyond the words that I'm speaking, I have to be kind. And empathy is the third thing, language I want to bring out here. It's very easy for people to see that you do not empathize with them when you're communicating. If someone has an idea that is different from yours, and your mind, you are not able to get past how you look at things, how you feel, to be able to communicate effectively with people when they have a position, you have to be able to put yourself in their shoes. Why do they think this is a challenge? Why do they think this is an opportunity? Why do they feel strongly about this? Why do they feel reluctant about this? Your ability to empathize with people would help you to understand them better when they speak to you, and will also make them more receptive when you speak to them. And the third one I put here is just something I call a game changer all the time. You could be conveying the most difficult information, but when you do it with a smile, you're more human. So wear this language of a smile when you speak to people. Find opportunity to smile at them. It humanizes you, connects you better with them. So if you can relate to any of this being a positive thing when people spoke to you or when you spoke to people in their reactions, just put an emoji to show that you can relate with that. Any one of this, either respect, kindness, empathy, or a smile being useful in your discussions. I see so many emojis. Thank you for that. So we move on to the next slide. Let's keep this at the back of our minds as we now go into the practical actions that I am going to recommend in the next slide. So when you are in a team, a culturally diverse team, or a team that is diverse in any other way, and you're having communications, face-to-face communication, email communication, group chats on WhatsApp, or whatever other medium through which you are communicating, always keep in mind that there are different types of people. And for you to get the full benefit of your team, you have to go round the table. And that's my first point. It is not effective communication within a team when all of the opinions, all of the ideas, all of the suggestions are coming from the same 2 or 3 persons in a team of 25, in a team of 10. It is not effective communication. It could just be that the loudest people are constantly speaking. It could just be that the most aggressive people are constantly speaking, or the strongest personalities are coming out. But the best ideas could be with the quiet ones, the ones that hardly speak. So if you, as a volunteer, are leading a team, this is particularly important. Test for ideas across the room. Thank you for the love. Apparently, speaking is irritating my throat, so I'll try to wrap this up quickly. So go around the table. Even if it's in a group chat, you're having these conversations, go around the table, call people's name and say, do you have anything to add to this? Oh, we haven't heard your voice. Do you have any ideas? And that way you get the value from everyone. The second one is like it. You could even have a case where you have no one speaking. Don't just take it upon yourself, maybe as a leader, to say, okay, fine, I've asked for inputs, no suggestions. Okay, we move on. This is what we're going to do. No, prompt people for contributions. For you to have effective communication, you must do some prompting. Based on the cultural differences, some people defer to seniority. So if someone is older, someone is more experienced in the group, they would not speak unless they are prompted. And that could be a major form of cultural difference between, one part of the team and the other. So for you to get good value from the team, prompt the people who are not likely to speak. And in a case where even people who are likely to speak and not speaking, prompt them. And there is a way you respond in a team discussion or team communication or between you and another team member that will shut down their ability to open up to you in future discussions. And that is where you are quick to negate what they say. So even when you disagree, and I'm moving on to the third point now, even when you disagree with someone, always use positive framing in your response. So one of the things I've learned is before you use the word but, think about using and instead. So someone says, I think we should go to the beach for the next event. I love the beach. I think it's great to be outdoors, but you have a different idea. You think we should rent a hall, sit indoors, have slides on the projector, and be very serious. Instead of saying, oh, but I think we can have an outdoor event instead of what you're suggesting. You can say, oh, that's a great idea. And another thought I'm thinking is we could also have an indoor event. Somehow using and instead of but makes it sound better to the person that has the first contribution. It doesn't sound like you're negating what they say. It sounds like you're adding to it. You're just adding to the contributions on the table. And we have to be careful when people make contributions. We have to be careful even with our body language, our response. You don't just off and say, what is that? That could shut some people down. You don't just laugh and say, that's so ridiculous. That could shut some people down. So it's good to say, that's an interesting idea. I never thought about that. Well, that's a different perspective. I never thought about that. I would have said this, but that's also an interesting idea. So the way we frame our responses could make it so much more positive, and it would encourage people to speak up. And sometimes the best ideas will come from the most unlikely source. The fourth point here is use clear language. Clarity is a component. If we're not talking about teams and we're just focused on communication, clarity is a key component of effective communication. You have to be clear. Your communication shouldn't be mumble jumble. Someone is trying to sort through a lot of things to understand what you're trying to say. Clarity is very important. So use clear language. There's no need to use very complicated grammar. There's no need to go round about the bush to make a point. Just be clear on what you're trying to say. And if you're dealing with people who speak different languages, don't be shut off from people's accents. I'm sure you can tell I have an accent and it could be very different from yours. Well, I'm Nigerian. We all have accents. If you're Australian, you have an Australian accent. If you're American, you have an American accent. And there would be someone who is not used to your accent in a diverse team. So be very aware of that when you're speaking within a culturally diverse team. Learn to pace your words in such a way that they can understand. If I'm speaking with my Nigerian friends, I probably will be speaking a whole lot faster. But if I speak that way on this meeting, you probably won't understand half of what I've said. You would think I'm probably speaking a native language or something. The same thing with the Australians. I listen to my Australian colleagues sometimes and they're just going off and you're like, are you even speaking English? And they laugh and they have all of their own slangs that is very different from the Americans, the British, the same. And I would imagine for any country you come from, there is this unique way of speaking that even when you're speaking English, it could be very hard for someone who is not from your country to catch on the jokes, the slangs, and even the speed at which you're speaking. So use clear language when you're speaking in a diverse team and pace yourself properly so that people can hear and understand you. The fifth one is a component for any kind of communication, and it's particularly important when you're speaking to a culturally diverse team. Seek confirmation after you have spoken. So when you speak to people in a team, don't assume that they understand you, especially if you're the leader of the team. Test and say, do you get what I'm saying? Is it clear? Or you ask them things like, what do you think I have said? Let them say it back to you. And they're like, oh, you're saying we should do A, B, C, and D. And then you could test if they've missed out something. And you say, oh, yes, I said that, including this. Or you could realize that you were completely misunderstood. And you say, oh, no, that's not what I mean. This is actually what I mean. So always test to confirm if you are understood when you're speaking in a team. So we move to the next one. Communication is two-way traffic. So number 6 speaks to listening. The communication experts have told us severally that there's a reason why you have 2 ears and just 1 mouth. So maybe, just maybe, you're supposed to listen twice as much as you speak. And research has shown that most times we are so quick to speak that even when we are listening to someone, we are listening to speak. We just want them to finish talking so we can speak again. That is not a good practice for effective communication. Effective communication means that you are listening to understand. You listen to understand. Listen to the point where you say, okay, I fully get what you're trying to say. And you can do number 5 to the person who is speaking again and say, just to be clear, this is what you're saying and this is what you mean. And they say yes. And you're like, okay, take it in, understand it before you respond. And do not be quick to dismiss anything that anyone says. Because good communication comes from, remember, our kindness, empathy, respect. If you truly respect someone, you would truly weigh their opinion before you choose to accept it or discard it. So the least you could do is listen to understand first, and then you can respond. If you are being empathetic, being respectful, being kind in the way you take information from other people in a multicultural team, and they're being same with you, you will find that in that team, you're communicating effectively. And the last thing I'll say is be humble and authentic. Arrogance has never served anyone well in communication. If you feel like someone is talking down at you, you immediately feel defensive in the communication. And you would either shut down and not speak, or you get maybe a little bit more aggressive than you normally would be. And if you feel like someone is not being truthful, not being ethical, not showing integrity, you also are very reluctant either to take or share information with them. So when you speak, understand that beyond your voice, beyond your words, it's important that your body language, your tone, your way of responding shows both humility and authenticity. So those are some practical actions that you could employ in your various engagements and discussions with people as a team, especially when you have diversity in the team, to make your communication much more effective. So I'll stop there and we'll take questions. Thank you for listening. If there is anything that resonated with you, you could drop a comment, a contribution in the question box. You can also drop your questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's really helpful, or your thoughts and your comments. I think that is, I mean, I take a lot of notes and I hope I start to implement them, and I hope that this also will be as useful for me as for everyone here. And you can write your questions in the tool, and we will be sharing here. I'm checking the message, and most of them are just saying thank you for your effort, for doing this even with your sickness.
Oh, that's so kind of you.
We really thank you. And everyone is really appreciating all your effort. Okay, here we have a question, and if they want to know if there is a tip or an structure that help us to prompt conversation or keep communication going.
Yeah. So I mentioned one already, right? You can actually call people's names. So if you've been talking in a team for 15 minutes and someone has said nothing at all, you can say, "Hey, Gina, I know you have a bright idea. What do you think about this plan?" And they would say something. So you can prompt people by calling their name. And when we talk about going around the table, is literally asking people, do you have an opinion? Is there something you'd like to add to this? And if you can think of something they have done before that relates to the project, you can say, "Oh, I remember last year you actually helped us to build this, the slides we used for that presentation. You are experiencing this. What do you have to say about this slide we're trying to build? Is there any tip you have for us?" So, and that talks about what I said before about the communication starting before the actual conversation. You have to connect with people before the actual conversation. So if you do know that someone likes coffee, for example, that could be a conversation starter. If you want to get them into you're like, "Oh, what kind of coffee, are you interested in these days? I know you're always experimenting with coffee." They're losing up. They talk about something they like. They're comfortable. And then you say, "This project we're having, I know you're a very creative person. See all the creative things you do with coffee. What do you think we should be doing differently with this project?" And you see their creative side come alive. So you can connect with people on something they already like, and then, take the conversation from there.
They also right. Uh, they have a problem, and is that they can remember names. How can it still have a good communication when having such a problem? This is interesting. This
So
also
that's the
happens to me
problem. That's
sometimes.
the problem that's a problem I have as well. So I'll tell you how I deal with it. I ask people for their names every time. So it's easier for me when it's a face-to-face meeting, or when I run into them somewhere in the office in a meeting. I would say, like, "Please forgive me. I need to hear your name like 5 times before it sticks. So please remind me, what's your name?" And they say, "Oh, my name is Gina." I'm like, "Gina, I have forgotten your name. apologize in advance for the next time I'll ask you again. Please forgive me. I'm terrible with names. And people would laugh and they're okay with it. So you could make it easier on yourself by, laughing about it and just confessing upfront. Remember to talk about being authentic, that I really struggle with names, but I know you very well. We've worked together before. Please remind me your name again. And they tell you, and you're like, thank you so much for being kind to me. So you can do that.
That is really helpful. We have another question. It says, how can you correct another member of your team if they fail to follow the communication etiquette? If they don't follow all these skills?
So if they're not being very extreme, and by extreme, I mean if they're not disrupting the meeting and dominating the meeting, if they're just a bit off, you can call them aside the first time after the meeting, separate from other people, and say, especially if you're the leader, and even if you're not the leader, if you felt offended by maybe they spoke to you rudely or they cut you off and didn't let you finish, they didn't listen to you, you could call them aside and say, I felt very uncomfortable with that part, and that's you being authentic too, let them know that, hey, I feel uncomfortable. I didn't want to raise it in the meeting, but I felt like I should talk to you one-on-one, that I actually feel uncomfortable with that. Now, some people don't take correction easily. If they come to the next meeting and they're still doing the same thing, maybe they're cutting you off, they're speaking over you repeatedly, they're dismissing what you're saying, you have to find some very good phrases to point them out or call them out in public. So, for example, if they've cut you off and finished what they were saying, you could say, well, I was not finished before you cut me off. So as I was saying before you cut me off, this is the point I wanted to make. And then it becomes very obvious to them and to everyone else, like, yeah, that was not right. You shouldn't be cutting people off. So without doing the same thing, you can wait for them to finish, but you make it very clear in your communication that, well, as I was saying before you cut me off, this, and if you are the leader of the team, then you can make a correction very public. You can say, oh, okay, time out, everyone. Time out, everyone. Okay, let's calm down. I think we have to remember to be respectful in our conversations. I think we should remember not to speak over ourselves. You can call Mary. I don't think it was good the way you dismissed the idea that James was given. So James, please, let's hear your idea again. And Mary, we've heard you. Let's take all the ideas together before we make a decision. So as a team, you have a very powerful position to regulate the tone of the communication.
Okay, we're getting short of time, so I will select two more questions. We have different comments and everything. So one of them is, how do you deal with other volunteers in a team who do not deliver their task? What is the best way to move forward?
So the temptation is, if you are the hardworking one, the temptation is to do everything yourself. You feel like, this team, people are not pulling their weight. I'm not going to remind them anymore. I'm just going to do it. But one of the signs of a great leader is you're able to delegate. And you have to think of yourself as not being just an individual contributor, but you're one managing other contributors. So you have to learn how to remind people of the expectations. So if you come to a meeting and you give people different actions, there are 5 people, you have 5, you define the roles clearly. We have 5 actions for all 5 of us. You define the timeline clearly. When are we going to get this done? You let them agree to it at the meeting. Don't leave any task open-ended. So agree on the timing. We're getting this in 1 week. We're getting this in, 5 days. Put a date to it. And as a leader or coordinator, send a reminder to each of them when it is due. If possible, send the reminder in the group email, group chat, so everyone can see everyone is getting a reminder. And if at the end of the day they still don't deliver, then you have to also clearly, with that whole team being present, hand their tasks over to other people and say, because you have failed to deliver on this. Now, people don't like being put on the spot. But if you quickly go take on the task and you do it yourself, it tells them they don't need to do it the next time. If they're busy, you just do it. But hold people accountable. That's one of your responsibilities as a leader. And if they don't do it eventually, assign it to someone else, but make it clear to them and to everyone else in the group that we had a failure on this action. It was not delivered on time.
Yes. And a final question, I'm trying to mix two that are somehow similar. And one, they say that you talk about being an introvert, and they would like to know how can that be balanced in this, if this kind of person is in a team. But also there is another question that say that one of our volunteers is really eloquent when they speak virtually, but it's hard to do it in person. So I think that somehow this is pretty similar. What do you recommend for them in this case, introverts and when need more ideas to speak in person?
Sorry, the second one, can you repeat it? The person is afraid of speaking
as a volunteer,
publicly?
I'm very eloquent when speaking virtually, but I find it hard to collaborate in person. How can I fix that?
You know, I speak a lot nowadays, and people feel like I've always been confident, but I've not always been confident. I used to remember when I would go out to speak back then, and my heart would be beating so fast. I think it's going to jump out of my chest before I actually start speaking. But one thing that I found for myself is that practice helps. So even if you're afraid, even if you are jittery, even if your voice is shaking, when you're meeting people face to face, still speak to them. Tell yourself, I am going to speak to them. Even when your heart is beating fast, still raise your hand and say, with your shaky voice, I have an idea. I think we should do this. What you will find out is the second time you do it, your voice will be less shaky than the first time. The third time, and like that. So eventually you will find that whether it's stage fright when you're standing in front of people or just the fear of an introvert speaking one person to the other, you would eventually find it easier to speak publicly face to face the more you practice it. And one way to help people warm up to you, because what we're afraid of is the reaction. What if they don't take what I say? What if, they don't like me? What if they snub me and they just walk away? One of the ways to make it easier when you're talking to people is to smile and give them compliments. Everybody likes compliments. So when you tell someone, oh my God, I like your shoes, they're so nice. Oh, you're so beautiful. I like your, and they're already smiling. And you smile back at them. It's very easy to now ask them some technical questions. Oh, what do you work on? What do you do? It gets easier. So for the one-on-one conversation, start with like building a relationship, even if it's a 2 minute relationship, right? Where you're like, oh, I like your accent. People tell me that all the time. I like your accent. Where are you from? Okay, I'm from Nigeria. And then you have a conversation starter. So for every scenario, think of a good conversation starter if it's one-on-one. If it's a group and you're shaking and you're not sure, smile, say hello, everyone, and then do it anyway, even if you're shaky and afraid. It will get easier with practice.
Thank you so much for all those advice. We really appreciate all the knowledge and experience that you just shared with us. With that, we finish our webinar for today. I share in the chat a link for with our feedback form. So we will appreciate if our volunteers can fill it, so we will know how do you feel during our activity and what can we do next. So thank you so much, everyone. Our amazing speaker. It was really amazing having you. Thank you so much for doing this event with your sister. We really appreciate it, and thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all for having me. I totally enjoyed being here with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.